Why is Michigan's defensive line still so much better? KG. Where's he going there? Better than.
You mean the Michigan defense that has 5 sacks compared to the Ohio State defense that has 3 sacks? I mean, the two teams that have allowed the same amount of points this year, both teams have allowed 10 points. I mean, okay, sure, whatever. I mean, Ohio State can only deal with what it's running against, and it's teams that are sitting there and sitting on the ball and snapping it late in the play clock and everything else. And and Brian, let me say, I am not here to praise Ohio State's defensive line right now at this point. I'm just saying that this belief that Michigan's defensive line is significantly better is something that I certainly don't see. Both have kind of been non-entities to me so far through 8 quarters of football. Let's get into real conference play and see what's happening there. Ohio State's played Youngstown State. Michigan's played Youngstown State twice. Let's get into some real games before we let the crap fly.
Yeah, I will say that Ohio State is holding opponents to 2.6 yards per carry, which Michigan is at 2.9 yards per carry. So if you want to throw something onto Ohio State's side of the defensive line, you can do it with that.
I think the pass rush has been negated by quick drops and getting the ball out quickly. The opponents, I think, have only thrown 46 passes in the combined 2 games for Ohio State. So those aren't a ton of opportunities to get after the opposing passer. And Ohio State does rotate guys. So, the opportunities for Sawyer and Tuimoloau, maybe not what they need to be. But having said that, if they expect to have success against Western Kentucky and Notre Dame, they're going to have to get pressure on these 2 quarterbacks because they're both outstanding. And if you can't get in this player's face or knock them to the ground or sack them, create some negative plays, they're going to carve you apart. So, and I don't care who you've got playing in the secondary. So, it's just a fact of life that these guys, the guy they're playing this week threw for over 4,000 yards last year, and he knows what he's doing. I've watched the South Florida game, their first game of the year, and that chart that they put up there, short passes, intermediate passes, and deep passes, it's like Hollywood Squares. It's, a 9 square chart. He fills up all 9 squares. He's going to expose your defense side to side and vertically. And Ohio State secondary is going to have to come to play, and the Ohio State front's going to have to get after him, or they're going to score their requisite 25, 30 points probably.
I was a little surprised that Jim Knowles wasn't concerned, and I was actually said he was satisfied and that with the defensive ends, and they're getting the job done with the pass rush. As Steve said, it's 46 passes or whatever, but I'm not sure how often JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer are even hitting the quarterback right now. We'll know a lot more this week, and if they're still not getting there, yes, teams will change the way they get rid of the ball against Ohio State's defensive ends. They'll throw it quick, they'll throw it short, a bunch of screens and things like that. But they're going to have ample opportunity to show that they are the pass rushers that people expect. And if it's not there, then they're not living up to expectations. And I think we'll know more after this week than we do now. And I think you also start to have to show more defensively in the next couple of weeks than you have to this point. And I still don't know how much they even want to show against Western Kentucky when, are they holding anything back? And Jim Knowles was disappointed he had to blitz as much as he did against Youngstown State, and we saw that they also lost contain more. They lost leverage more against Youngstown State, I think partly because of that blitzing. And so, what happens if they find they have to do it more, or do they just sit back in coverage and let the defensive line rush? And if they don't get there, that's fine. It's more important about tackling the guy in front of you and forcing Western Kentucky to go 7-8 plays down the field, hoping at some point Austin Reed will throw his customary 1 or 2 interceptions a game, or you'll get a quarterback sack, or there'll be a hold, and now you're at 2nd and 17, and now you're feeling better about the situation.
Through the years, I've always been like, Yeah, I mean, one of the best things you can do for your secondary is get a pass rush, get the quarterback off balance, force him to move the pocket, a lot of things like that. But the people that champion, quarterback sacks and TFLs are like the same people who champion total yardage. The last time I checked, the way that we determine a winner and a loser in the game is final score. I mean, points on the board. So I think it's important to have a pass rush. I do think it's fair to say that we haven't seen much out of the defensive ends, but I'm going to say that out of a different angle of we haven't seen a lot out of the ends because just not the way that the games have gone so far. And people can say, well, stop making excuses for them. But if teams are not throwing the ball, if they're not dropping back, if they're just running between the tackles or trying to run off tackle or do things like that, I don't necessarily know what the expectation is for these ends to do in terms of putting up sack numbers. And I do see Brian Leger's next super chat saying OSU's in the bottom 30 for TFL and pressure. You have to look at the opponents that they've played and the game plans that they've taken there. Apples aren't apples across the board. Everybody's opponents that they've played to this point are different. So I think that 2 games in, that's not necessarily the thing that my eye is going to and saying that's the issue with this team. We're talking about a team that has given up 10 points this year, the same as Michigan. Who cares how it was done? I don't understand. And I get it. I get it. Brian's trying to tweak some people and using the power and leveraging super chats to get there. And we welcome you. Keep prodding the bear. That's fine. We love your super chats, but I just don't necessarily understand and will not feign outrage over this because it's immaterial so far.
I will say last year, Michigan had fewer tackles for loss in the Ohio State game than Ohio State did. So if we want to keep scoring by tackles for loss, I'm sure Ohio State fans would be perfectly okay with that. I will also say they had the same number of tackles for loss in the 2020 game that Michigan refused to play.